friends, very warm greetings from TNV Academy. Today I am here to discuss with you all about the 2022 version, the ISO 27001 Information Security Management System Standard. We all know that in November 2022, the ISO 27001 standard has been revised. Today in this session, we will discuss about the major changes that has been introduced in the revised version of the standard. So let's start our discussion. ISO 27001 is the leading international standard focused on information security. Published by the International Organization for Standardization (ISO) in partnership with the International Electrotechnical Commission (IEC). Both are leading international organizations that develop international standards. ISO 27001 provides a framework to help organizations of any size or any industry to protect their information in a systematic and cost-effective way through the adoption of an Information Security Management System (ISMS). ISO 27001 was initially published in October 2005 and was revised in October 2013 to better accommodate the changing information security challenges. And now again in 2022, ISO understood to introduce new requirements within this standard to cater all the required and emerging changes in the information technology and cybersecurity domain. However, before we move forward and discuss the points of transition in ISO 27001 standard, it is important to understand to note that there are some slight wording changes throughout the body of the standard. These wording changes don't change the overall meaning of the standard, but rather clarify areas which were ambiguous in the 2013 edition. So let's move forward and discuss about the new changes introduced in the ISO 27001 2022 version one by one. First change in ISO 27001 2022. The first noticeable change of the update standard is the name, which is now titled as ISO and IEC 27001 2022 Information Security, Cybersecurity and Privacy Protection Information Security Management System Requirements. This updated title more comprehensively reflects the standard's purpose via the updated information security controls. So as the name suggests, now the ISO 27001 standard is more focused on cybersecurity and protection of data in more organized and concentrated manner than it was in 2013 version. Hence, it is more evident as the name suggests that new requirements to cater cybersecurity and data protection has been added into the standard, which we'll discuss in detail in the later half of our session. Second and the most significant change in ISO 27001 2022. The most significant change in ISO 27001 2022 is the update of Annex A to reflect the ISO 27001 2022 guidelines update made earlier this year. Annex A outlines all information security controls which need to be applied to an organization's ISMS. The changes within Annex A include security controls 24 merged controls, 58 update controls, 11 new controls, control categories, category restructure, control attributes, addition of attributes to Annex A. Let's discuss these Annex A changes in detail. Security controls. The previous version of Annex A contained 114 controls, which has now been reduced to 93. Technically, the new version contains fewer controls, but much of that decrease comes from redundant controls which have been removed or merged. In fact, there were actually 11 new controls added to Annex A, which include: the first one is threat intelligence. The second one is information security for the use of cloud services. The third one is ICT readiness for business continuity. The fourth one is physical security monitoring. Fifth one is configuration management. The sixth one is information deletion. Seventh one is data masking. The eighth one is data leakage prevention. The ninth one is monitoring activities. 10th one is web filtering, and the last one is secure coding. These additional controls add new layers of information security to the standard to reflect the current state of cybersecurity. Control categories. The new 2022 Standard Edition now organizes the controls into 4 categories in place of the 14 domains from the 2013 edition. The first one is People 8 controls. The second one is Organizational, 37 controls. The third one is Technological, 34 controls. The last one is Physical, 14 controls. This change comes from an objective to make the control categories more modernized, simplified and versatile. This allows the standards to be more user-friendly and useful. The previous control categories were found to be complex to navigate on a day-to-day basis, making it inefficient. Control attributes. The updated version also provides a new organizational scheme for the controls. Attributes can be used to filter, sort or present controls in different views for different audiences. The security controls are now sorted by 5 attributes. The first one is control type. Second one is cybersecurity concepts. The third one is information security properties. The fourth one is operational capabilities. And the last one is security domains. These new attributes help businesses prioritize the correct controls for their context. For example, if your primary concern is confidentiality, you can use these attributes to sort the controls by that one, information security property. Now let us discuss what changes have been introduced in the clauses of ISO 27001 standard one by one. The first one is in clause 4.2, understanding the needs and expectation of interested parties, a new item. The added requiring an analysis of which of the interested party requirements must be addressed through the ISMS. The second one is in clause 4.4, information security management system. It now especially notes that the ISMS needs to include the processes needed and their interaction. Even though this was implied in the previous version, it's now specifically noted in relation to the entirety of the ISMS. Third one is in clause 5.1. Leadership and commitment. A new note was added to clarify that references to business in this document can be interpreted broadly to mean those activities that are core to the purpose of the organization's existence. Fourth is in clause 5.3. Organizational roles and responsibilities and authorities are phrased in the first paragraph of the 2022. Fourth, in clause 5.3, organizational roles, responsibilities and authorities are phrased in the first paragraph of the 2022 edition was added to clarify that roles are assigned and communicated within the organization to avoid ambiguity. Fifth, in clause 6.13, information security risk treatment, a new noted was added to clarify. The information security controls listed in Annex A are not exhaustive and additional information security controls can be included if needed. Sixth, in clause 6.2, information security objectives and planning to achieve them, 2 additional items were added. Item requires objectives to be monitored and item require objectives to be available as documented information. Seventh, in clause 6.3, planning of changes was added, requiring that any change in the ISMS needs to be carried out in a planned manner, which is now aligned with the ISO 9001:2015 Quality Management System Standard, clause 6.3. Eighth, in clause 7.4, communication items and were deleted and replaced with a new item which requires the organization to determine how it will communicate with internal and external parties. Ninth, in clause 8.1, operational planning and control, new requirements were added for establishing criteria for security processes and for implementing processes according to those criteria. moving the focus away from simply keeping documented information and integrated into day-to-day businesses. In addition, the terminology in relation to outsourced processes was updated to better match ISO 9001:2015 with externally provided processes, products or services. 10th, in clause 9.2, internal audit has been restructured into two subsections but still has the same content as the 2013 edition. 11th, in clause 9.3, management review has been structured into three subsections with the same content as the 2013 edition, plus one new input item at 9.3.2, which requires that the management review considers changes in the needs and expectation of interested parties that are relevant to the ISMS. 12th, in clause 10, improvement, the subclauses have switched places. So the first one is now continual improvement 10.1 and the second one is now non-conformity and corrective action 10.2, while the content of those clauses has not changed. As we have discussed the changes, now let us understand how will these changes affect your current certification to ISO 27001:2013. The first one is there is a 3-year transition period from the publication date of ISO 27001:2022. This means businesses will need to meet the requirements and get certified to the new version by October 2025. Second, if your business is already certified to ISO 27001:2013, you can continue to have your audits conducted against the 2013 standard requirements during the transition period, but you will need to update your ISMS be audited against the new 2022 requirements and achieve certification to ISO 27001:2022 before October 2025. Third, the best time to arrange your transition audits is at one of your scheduled surveillance or recertification audits. However, if this timing doesn't work out, it can be through a separate audit. The transition audit needs to include A. An assignment against ISO 27001:2022 and the need for changes to your ISMS. B. The updating of the Statement of Applicability SOA. C. If applicable, the updating of the risk treatment plan. And D. The implementation and effectiveness of the new or change control chosen. As a minimum, the transition audits need to include at least an additional 0.5 auditor day. It's important to note that all certification based on ISO 27001:2013 will expire or be withdrawn at the end of the transition period by 24 October 2025. Fourth, for businesses that are looking to get certified to the ISMS standard for the first time, you can still achieve your initial certification to ISO 27001:2013. But you will also need to transition to ISO 27001:2022 before the end of the transition period. If you are just starting out with developing your ISMS, it will be advisable that you start with ISO 27001:2022. Let me now take you through how should you prepare to make the transition to ISO 27001:2022. You can make this transition by, first one is reviewing the new requirements mentioned in the 2022 version documented of ISO 27001 and familiarizing yourself and your team with the changes. Second one is conducting a gap analysis. This should include reviewing the security controls, as many of them have been merged, updated and also new additions. This will help you determine what will be affected and what needs to be adjusted. Ideally, an ISO certification expert can conduct this to provide you with a report containing all the gaps and recommendations to best upgrade your system to the new changes. Third one is updating your ISMS and implementing the changes. Many businesses will opt to use a Consultants can assist businesses implement the new requirements in a way that suits their existing ISMS and works for their current business's practices. Engaging a consultant will also help minimizing the risk of getting non-conformance during external audits and losing your certification from not addressing the new requirements. The fourth one is completing an internal audit to help identify if your management system meets the updated ISO 27001:2022 requirements or if it is still requires further improvements. It is important to note that internal audits must be conducted by somebody who is trained and competent to ensure your businesses gets the most out of these processes. The fifth one is conducting a management review to evaluate whether ISMS is performing effectively after the change have been implemented and if its suitability and adequacy have remained. A consultant can also help you conduct and document management review meetings. And last but not the least, let us see how these changes will affect and statement of applicability. Organizations will also need to update your statement of applicability SOA to reflect the 2022 edition. The SOA is a document which states the security controls and policies that are being applied by the organization. Essentially, the SOA allows businesses to omit particular security controls when they are not relevant to the scope of their businesses. Organizations must review their existing controls listed in their SOA and align them with a current risk assessment of their information security environment, threats and vulnerabilities as per clause 6.1.3 item in the ISO 27001:2022 standard documented. The SOA must contain A. The necessary controls. B. Justification for their inclusion. C. Whether the necessary controls are being implemented or not. And D. Justification for including any of the security controls. So we have now come to the conclusion of this session. I am sure that you must be having a lot of unanswered questions. So I would request you to please put forward those questions in the comment section of the video and we will be really happy answering them. Till we meet next, it's best wishes from TNV Academy. Thank you.